Welcome to my channel. My name is Palisa, and the work that I've been called to do is of healing this nation from the brutal past, from the shame, the pain, the anger, and the bitterness of the past. We have been traumatized as a people by a very evil system. I'm making this video to help you understand why it is important to always go back to the past if you want a future. Your future lies back there. And today is a day that we are given in order to make right of all the wrongs that have been done. This video is meant to help you to look at yourself and acknowledge that I'm going through pain. There's something that is not going right with me emotionally and spiritually. And also to understand our conditions today, that the fact that we have people looking like us in government does not mean that we are free. And for us also to understand, why is it that we still landless in this day and age, and why the government is not willing to bring back the land. The past regime used bills, it passed laws, it used certain systems that it put in place in order to ensure that their ideology works on us, to ensure that we understand that we are slaves now. We don't own this land anymore. We own nothing. And that we are here to empower and to enrich them. And we are not expected to complain or even to protest, but we have to accept our situation as it is. So one of the systems that were used to shame us, to break up our families, was the compound system. So with the discovery of gold and diamonds in Kimberley and gold here in Johannesburg, labor was needed from Black people to come and work in the mines. So now, because people were living in the rural areas, in the villages, they had to come to the cities to work. They needed a place to stay. So in these mines, they built what was called the compounds. In Kimberley, when it started, it was just shacks, whereby they put 20 to 40 men in just one shack. And in Johannesburg, they built these houses, a huge hall, where they would house 30 men in one room. So these compounds were just next to the mines, and they were guarded. There was a gate to ensure that the laborers are always there, they're always on time, and that they put in the work that was expected of them. So in these compounds, at the gate, there will be the police, who are the compound police who work there. Their duty basically was to guard the gates, to ensure that women especially don't come in, because men were not allowed to live with women there. It was just men in one room, adults and young people. I mean, you had to use the washing facilities, the ablution facilities in front of everybody, young and old, put in the same compound. And the compound was guarded. You wouldn't just leave as you pleased. You had to have permission to leave. And if you had visitors, they had to first start at the gate to make the announcement that I'm here. And then you would be called to go and see your visitors, or sometimes they would be allowed to come in, but women were not allowed to. So men had to leave their families. They didn't see their children for the whole year, because the compound system did not allow for families. In the compound system, there was also the indunas. Those were the house boys. If you were a good worker, then they would give you that position of induna. So your responsibility was just to look after the people. And the indunas were not treating people very well. And there was also the compound manager, whose responsibility was to control the workers. to make sure that they are working and they are on time. So the indunas and the managers work together. And the indunas were on the side of the management, so they were not really liked by the workers. And then there was also those who were called isbonda. So his responsibility was mainly within, that hall where there were 30, 40 men living there, to ensure that he gives tasks to people so that, they clean the place, they tidy the place, and if there were disputes, he had to settle those disputes and things like that. So that was the life in the compound system. And you find that young men had to live with older men. And, the culture does not allow for young people to watch, older people naked. But that happened in the compound system. And if the people were also divided according to language, because that was also a tool that was used. So if you spoke Zulu, you had to sit with the Zulu people or sleep with the Zulu people and so forth and so forth. So people were not allowed to mix. So already in the compound system, they were promoting tribalism. They don't like certain people or don't speak to certain people because they don't speak your language. In the compound system, they were also given food and alcohol, which was also used as a means to control people. Because, for example, you were given tickets. If you had a ticket, it meant then you had to get a bigger portion of food and meat. And tickets only went to those who worked. Well, if you're a good worker, then you would get a ticket. So already, there was discrimination against certain people. Because if maybe you're a protester, maybe you are one who spoke out against the injustice that was happening, obviously you will be denied certain foods. You will be denied as well, certain position within the compounds, like being the policeman or induna or isbonda or things like that. So the divisions were already there and they were already clear. And the responsibilities of the police and the indunas as well was to ensure that they wake the workers up for their shift. Because, they had to go underground and, the mines operate on a 24-hour basis. So others had to go to work in the morning and others in the evenings or in the afternoons. So there were people who were responsible for doing that, and they were paid extra wages for doing so. So now, as a man separated from your wife, obviously you will look for a girlfriend. Women around the cities now already are cheating on your wife. That was the breakdown in the system. And sometimes you find that these women fall pregnant. Now you have two families that you have to feed. Is the children in the homelands and the one who's living, in the township somewhere. So already it meant that with the little wages that you were getting, it was so low. Yet now you have to divide it between two families. So one family had to suffer. And most of the time, it was the family that was far away that suffered, because the women who were closer, they had means to ensure that these men maintained their children and them. But the women who were staying behind were suffering because they couldn't understand, why is my man not sending enough money? Or sometimes they didn't send money at all. And they also use alcohol, right? Workers were given a lot of alcohol. So most of them became drunk. They lost their jobs because they couldn't work. And others were so addicted, to alcohol that they would spend the little money they had on drinks. Meaning then that their families were suffering more. So obviously the children grow up angry, with anger that I never see my father, doesn't support us, doesn't maintain us, doesn't do anything for us. So already, this man who's already alienated from you because you only see them once a year, doesn't do anything for you, is a stranger to you, is now a person that you don't really like, you don't want to associate with, you don't want nothing to do with that man. And the women at home as well were living in pain because they knew that their husbands had girlfriends wherever they are. So they had to accept their cheating men. And now they're drunkards, they're drinking alcohol every day. So the compound system brought a lot of shame in our people because number one, you are living in appalling conditions. Secondly, you are earning way too little to be able to support yourself and your family. Thirdly, you can't send money home. And you know that the money that you are sending is way too little. It wasn't making any difference at all. At the same time, because you speak a certain language, already you are discriminated against. You are denied certain privileges. Or if you are unable to work due to whatever reasons, already you are denied nutrition. And you find that, the people who had position in the compounds are treating you very badly. I mean, some of these men were chiefs, they come from royalty. But when they come to the cities, to the compound system, they are treated like slaves. And that hurts as a man. When you know that there's nothing that you can do about your condition. Because at the beginning, the people had to go and work because they introduced the hard tax, whereby people had to pay the tax in money or with money. And so you were forced to go and work. It's not like this is what you wanted for yourself. So already the anger in you and the bitterness that I am leaving, my family and go work for these horrible people, living in appalling conditions, not being able, to do your manly duties of protecting and providing for your family, made a lot of men angry and bitter and ashamed of themselves. Hence, other men never went back home. They didn't. Their wives had to come here and look for them because they couldn't understand what happened to my husband, because they were ashamed of going back home to look their children and their wives in their eyes and say, I have nothing for you. I've been working for a year and I have nothing to show for it. And what is worse, there are other men back there who are treating me like a child, like a slave, like I'm nothing. So the pain is still there because we're still seeing the very same old things happening even today. It's still happening. People are living in the rural areas, no development, no work, nothing, no opportunities, no prospects. So they come to the cities even now to work and leave their families behind. Their children are being raised by their grandmothers because the young people have to come here and work. Migrant system, it's still there. You go to this hostel in Johannesburg, GP hostel. It's still men there. The hostels are still there. The compounds are still there. And they only allow men. No women allowed. No children allowed.